Hello everyone, so if anyone's wondering about that light, my window's just over there and it's quite a sunny day, so that's, I'm not an angel, calm down from heaven. No, seriously. In this film, actually that is quite bright, so just try, that's better, maybe. Okay, so in this video I'm going to talk about a pretty famous show we have in the United Kingdom called The Jeremy Kyle Show. Or as I like to call it, the Jeremy Vile Show. Now, this show's been running for about, I think, something like 7 years. And it's presented by a man who, I believe, had some small journalism experience in Birmingham. And somewhere along the line he decided to start this show. The show has a lot of viewership, a lot of support. It's regularly had ratings of over 1 million people, so clearly it has a lot of support, and that's why I feel motivated to make this video. Because quite often when I get into debates with Jeremy Kyle fans, they'll say, "Oh, if you don't like it, don't watch it." But I'm someone who believes that if something has an influence in society, and I believe that influence is negative, then I should speak up, stand by my conviction. And I do believe the Jeremy Kyle Show is deeply negative. I'll just speak a little bit about what the show entails for those of you who don't know. Actually, for American people watching this, think the Jerry Springer Show, but worse in some ways, because I think a lot of the Jerry Springer stuff is staged. The thing about the Jeremy Kyle Show is it isn't, and that should be a cause for concern. Now, I'm not going to beat around the bush. I have nothing but contempt for this show and the scumbag who fronts it. And I do have contempt for Jeremy Kyle as a person. Okay, so basically what the show entails is this. It's broadcast as people airing the differences in public, resolving their differences. And people will come onto the show who have a whole range of problems, sometimes very serious problems, all sorts of social problems. He often brings on guests who have issues with drug addiction, often career criminals, teen mothers, you name it. All these sort of problems that without a doubt inflict society. Now, from the outset, for those of you who think I'm living in an ivory tower and I don't know about the issues that the guests on Jeremy Kyle are facing, I'll have you know I lived in a tough housing estate for 2 years. So I do have some idea about the real world. I've struggled with unemployment. I know a lot of the issues that Kyle brings up in his show, so I'm not a pampered person living in an ivory tower at all. That's the first point. This show basically attracts, or let's say it brings on guests, so-called guests, who are very, very broken people. Their lives are a complete mess in every conceivable sense, and they're struggling with major, whole range of major problems. And some of them are deeply unpleasant people who viewers will say they get what they deserve. They are deeply unpleasant people, some of them. Some of them, you get wife beaters, you get love cheats, you name it. And there are career criminals, and the sort of thugs that I would have very little sympathy with in some cases. But, so it may surprise you, given my rants about crime, and you'll see that in other videos, why I'm so hostile to this show. But in a nutshell, I believe the Jeremy Kyle Show is human bear baiting. It's a disgusting social experiment whereby this very smug, very scheming presenter uses people's personal trauma for his own ratings. And the production team will always say they're not forced, they go on voluntarily. That's true to an extent, but these are vulnerable people who often have a very low intelligence, and they don't have the mental capacity to really see that they are being exploited. In some cases they're desperate and they're looking for any answers, so they've resorted to turning to the show to see if Jeremy will sort out their problems. But there has been a long line of incidents on this show that have really, really highlighted serious moral questions about what purpose exactly it serves. First of all, I'd like to just point out to the fans, and I may make another video specifically towards them. They don't watch it because they have much sympathy with the guests. They watch it because they want some sort of titillation at other people's emotional turmoil. It's a sort of voyeuristic look at other people's struggles, and the show, let's be clear about this, the show is marketed as entertainment. You will see the advertisements for Jeremy Kyle, and you will see that the way it is marketed is blatantly for entertainment. This is not a serious discussion show, such as Question Time. This is a show that is marketed for mass entertainment, and that entertainment is in the form of exploiting broken people's lives. And I think it's utterly disgusting. I mean, it really enrages me that this creep, Jeremy Kyle, has made his fame and fortune through this sort of exploitation. It sickens me. And the attitude of the crowd, the studio audience, also sickens me. I'm going to address them specifically in another video because I think someone needs to speak out against them. But personally, I'd love to see this taken off the air. I accept that's going to be difficult because as long as it has mass support, then I think it's ITV broadcasts it. They will justify that based on the ratings. And I think ITV's too cowardly to really look at moral questions. They only care about ratings. Jeremy Kyle as a presenter is a bully, a hypocrite, and a smug demagogue who loves to talk down to people while he's hiding behind his security guards. But if any guest retaliates, then of course the security guards will step in there to defend Jeremy. The fans treat him like he's some sort of living god. This is a man who's an ex-crack addict, or at least crack user. He's had several marriages, indicating failed marriages. And he was a gambling addict. So he's hardly a pillar of the community. And that's what I really find resentful. This smug attitude Jeremy Kyle seems to take, that he's better than everyone else, better than his guests. It just makes me sick, basically. None of us are perfect. I know what my faults are, but I'm not exploiting people who are struggling or who basically need a different approach. I don't doubt this isn't a case whereby I sympathise with all of his guests. I think some of his guests are deeply unpleasant people who need to face justice. But I want to see justice in the courts. I don't want to see it on some sort of daytime television show for sick entertainment. It just deeply troubles me that so many people think this is okay. And for those of you saying, oh, why do you care, it's just a TV show, I disagree. This is a TV show focusing on real social issues. And by presenting his guest as being the status quo, Jeremy Kyle is stirring up even more bigotry than the gutter press. He is stirring up distortions in society. For example, he has had claimants on the show who abuse the welfare system, and Kyle will deliberately tell his viewers that all unemployed people are like that, and that is dangerous. You know, Jeremy Kyle is far more dangerous than any leader of the far right in terms of stirring up bigotry. Because everyone knows the far right have a reputation. Jeremy Kyle's show seems to be socially accepted by far too many people. But this man is a demagogue. And that is blatantly obvious. People will say these people need someone to speak to them. They need that sort of treatment. And I don't dispute that some of them need justice. But this show has caused as many problems as it has solved. I'm going to quote another video which was an infamous headbutting incident. That's one that I think stands out for demonstrating just how sick this show is. And by the way, the guests are not just criminals or people who've done moral wrongs. These are people who are struggling in relationships. Normal people who are struggling in relationships. And then to have it... I will say this about the guests, I think they're very naive to go on the show. And if you're someone who's struggling out there with your emotional problems or your relationship, I would say, by all means, be free will, go on the show if you want, but just be aware. Look at the way Jeremy Kyle has presented previous guests, how he's exploited their situation. I would say to anyone, be very wary about contacting the show. You know, go to a marriage counsellor, go to a professional psychologist, go to anybody. And this is the point, Jeremy Kyle is not a professional. He has absolutely zero qualifications in psychology. He has zero qualifications in counselling. He's basically a failed ex-journalist who is now relying on other people's misfortune to line his own pockets, and I think it's utterly disgusting. And I think his entire production team should be ashamed of themselves. And Jeremy Kyle USA, it's now spread to the States. I've come across people who have said that they were deliberately misled by the show. They were treated like cattle, shown no respect whatsoever prior to the show, lied to about the circumstances in which they would be appearing. And that doesn't surprise me, because I've seen many examples of that in the UK from ex-guests. This is human bear baiting, and that's all it is. Kyle and his production team deliberately stir up people's emotional pain to get a reaction, and for people to find that entertaining, this is... It defies belief. It's just sickening. I honestly believe the Jeremy Kyle fans we have there are the very same people who would have enjoyed a public hanging in the past. It's sickening. And I do think the guests are very naive for going on, but I also counter that in many cases they are misled. They're desperate people who want a solution, and Kyle and his team will promise them the earth. And of course, the financial blackmailing will help. They'll give them large amounts of money to appear on the show. But it isn't just about the guests, it's about the wider implications of the sort of distortion that Kyle and his team are stirring up in society, especially towards the unemployed. They will take one young tearaway who's abused the system and then say all unemployed people are like this, and as an unemployed man, that really pisses me off. There's already enough hatred in society against people who are struggling, and all Kyle and his team are doing is making that worse. Just generally speaking, Kyle fans, the people who watch the show, are thick. They think they have some sort of moral high ground, but they really don't. And that's it, basically. This video is a rant about my contempt for the Jeremy Kyle show, and I really think I'd love to see it taken off air. I don't think that would happen. There's times, you know, I see Kyle and I really want to do this, you know. What a smug, hypocritical bully. What a vile man. To parade around like he's... I mean, you'll never see Kyle on his show saying, you know, I can tell you this because I made these mistakes. No, you see Kyle boasting about how good a father he was, how good a husband he was, how much of a saint he is. And I've seen on talk shows, other talk shows, who said, you know, I'm just a normal man. People hate me, but I'm just a normal guy. I've seen his book, his autobiography, saying, I think it's called I'm Only Speaking the Truth or something like that. Except, Jeremy, you aren't. You're distorting the situation, and you're lying, and you're misleading guests. It really is vile. And this video is just a rant, really. For those who say don't watch the show if you don't like it, I don't watch the show, but I've seen enough of it in various contexts to know what I'm talking about. And the judge who called this show human bear baiting is 100% right. I don't always agree with judges, but that judge was 100% right. And I will honestly celebrate the day this sick social experiment is taken off air. Okay, the entire production team, in my opinion, should hide their heads in shame for what they're doing. This is utterly disgusting. exploiting broken people in this way. Rant over.